Hey folks, welcome back to another video. My name is Matt Kuda, and today we're going to talk about the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, a much anticipated Canon camera, and it's finally been announced. Let's start off with the specifications. We have a 24 megapixel sensor. Here's the kicker, guys. Here's the kicker. It is not a backside illuminated sensor, stacked sensor. So the Canon rumors were dead wrong on this one, and it was an important piece to the puzzle that they messed up on. Why is it important that it be backside illuminated? Because this camera, I think, is set up for nature photography specifically and fast action, and the stacked sensor allows for a faster read time on the sensor, and so that allows for continuous shooting of fast-moving subjects like, a golfer swinging his club, without any kind of distortion, no kind of rolling shutter. And it's similar to what I shoot with on my Sony A9. And so we were looking forward to that. And unfortunately, it is not on this camera. So it has a 4K, up to 60p video recording, uncropped. So that's nice. Having it uncropped means it's going to be better quality. It has external 6K raw video recording, and internal 4K video recording, 6K oversampled. Oversampling simply means better quality. That's the takeaway. It has a pre-record feature. I really like the pre-record feature, guys. As a wildlife photographer particularly, what it allows you to do is, and this has been, this is a common feature in the cinema line that Canon has. And so what this allows us to do is this allows us to focus, say, on a bird on a branch. And instead of having to sit there and push the record button and wait and wait and wait and waste all that space on our SD card, now it continuously records for 3 or 4 seconds. So as I'm on that bird, as I'm taking photographs of that bird, now we see, as it flies, oh no, I forgot to hit the record button. It's okay. As soon as you hit the record button, you'll already have it because it goes back and grabs those 3 seconds. So very important feature. I wish all cameras had it, especially with video becoming such a big deal and an important thing in today's world. I like the fact that it has high-speed burst shooting. Now, if you're not familiar with this concept, high-speed burst is simply as I hold down the shutter button for a burst. All cameras, have a burst, right? Well, while I hold it down, the camera knows that you're in burst mode, so it creates a folder on the SD card. As soon as you let up off that button, it knows that that burst is done, and so it records just that burst to the card in the and puts them in that folder. To me, that's a great. It's small. It's not significant, but it is a really nice feature to have when you're trying to edit a lot of photographs quickly. So I like that. It has Canon Log 3. Canon Log 3 is simply a high dynamic range video profile. It's very much like RAW is for the still shooters. So a welcome thing to have for video. The AF is, of course, the second iteration of the AF system. It will detect humans, animals, vehicles, horses, trains, aircraft. It uses this deep learning technology we keep hearing so much about. And we recently saw it in the Sony A7R5. Check out that video if you want to find out more about that camera. This AI technology is kind of what the future holds for us as wildlife photographers or nature or any photographer, people photography, whatever. It's going to take the technical out as much as possible to allow us to focus on creativity, and that is critical. I'm sorry if you pride yourself on being an amazing photographer when it comes to putting the little AF point on the bird's head, and if you pride yourself in doing that, that's great. But in the future, the camera's going to do it for you. It's going to know it's a bird. It's going to lock right in on the head, and you're done. All you're going to have to do is spend more time being creative and looking for better shots and better lighting and really chasing that light. Okay, continuous movie recording now exceeds 30 minutes. I have heard some people say up to 6 hours of recording. I don't know about that. I'd like to see that, but definitely going to be over 30 minutes. So something we've all been waiting for is breaking that 30-minute barrier that all these camera manufacturers, put on the video. It has dual SD card slots. Now, SD, a lot of people are complaining about this because they didn't want SD. They wanted CF Express, and this is the UHS-2 cards, which are pretty powerful. But when you look at what this camera is providing, are we... I don't know. I think it's fine. I really do. I think the UHS-2 is fine. Yeah, I get it. I get wanting the higher throughput and all that. But the truth of the matter is, if your camera doesn't have 8K video, and things like that, you're going to be okay with SD. So, and it's a lot cheaper too, by the way. Okay, so we're going to have the LP6NH battery in this camera, same as the Mark I. By the way, this camera is very much like the Mark I. It's the same in weight. It's the same in size. The only difference is they moved not the only, but the one big difference in how its ergonomics are is they moved the on-off switch from one side to the other. So that's got some people all in a tizzy and all that. I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much. If I shot with that camera, I just get used to it, So, in-body image stabilization, or IBIS, is up to 8 stops. So that's good to see. Would have liked to have seen 9, but 8, hey, I'll take 8. It has a digital hot shoe that's taken from the R3. Okay, so that's the first time in this camera, I believe. I don't think that was on the R6 Mark I. I think it's an R6 Mark II digital hot shoe. It has a vari-angle touchscreen, exactly the same as the R6, I'm told. So, again, this is kind of just a refresh. This is a refresh of the R6 Mark I, and we're going to talk about what I think in a minute, but the price is $24.99. So $2,499 US will get you this body. The question I think that we all have to answer is, what do I think about this as far as nature photographers? Just on paper. We're just talking about paper here. I haven't had time to shoot with this. I don't know anyone personally that has shot with this. There are a lot of people online that have started testing it. And so far, the testing is positive. The fact that it has, and this is the other thing I want to talk about, it has 12 frames per second mechanical. Okay. That's plenty. That is plenty of frames per second on the mechanical side. I was very happy shooting 10 frames per second on my 1D Mark III back in the day. It was plenty of frames per second. So at 12, it's no slouch, guys. 12 frames mechanical, that's great. So I still think it's a good investment if you're talking about doing wildlife. I think it's going to be a good wildlife camera. And I think the fact that it has 40 frames per second on the electronic side is frankly amazing. Now, the caveat to that is that drops you down to 12-bit RAW, whereas the 12 frames per second is 14-bit RAW. 12-bit RAW is still pretty good, guys. It's still pretty good. 14-bit better, but 12 is still a good thing. The fact that you can shoot 40 frames per second, is that important? Honestly, you don't need to shoot 40 frames per second. My A9 is shooting at 20 frames per second, and I find it to be more than adequate to handle anything out there. So I think we're getting a little carried away with the frames per second is my point here. I've talked to other photographers as well, and they have had similar thoughts that, it's okay, it's nice to be able to have 40 frames per second, but tuning that back to, 20 frames per second would be ideal for me, and it wouldn't fill up a buffer at all. So I think it's all good. I think this camera checks a lot of the boxes for wildlife. I think it will turn out to be a great camera. The other thing I want to mention about the sensor, although it isn't BSI stacked, please note that it has been improved. And so when you're shooting in that 40 frames per second electronic shutter, bear in mind that it's only going to be distorted under certain situations. So if you had somebody running at you, for example, chances are it would not distort. If you had a bird flapping its wings, then yes, you would have distortion because the wings, and you actually get this curled distortion. I've seen it before where it's like, I can show you a picture of it actually. I'm going to put one up here and show you what the distortion looks like. But the wing just actually curves like this. It's weird. It's really bizarre. And so it's something to be mindful of. The last thing you want to do is be shooting at 40 frames per second, get back home and realize that the wings are all messed up on the bird, or the tennis racket that the guy was using is like warped backward or something. So yeah, it's a big deal, but it's not as big a deal, I think, as people make it out to be. I don't think it's a deal breaker. I just think having, again, I'll go back to what I said in my audio podcast, and if you haven't viewed that, please do, or listen to that, please do. Canon, Sony, Nikon, they're not going to compete with themselves. They're not going to give you an R3 at this price point. They're just not going to do it. We got to stop asking for it. It's not going to happen. Okay. Sony is notorious for packing as much as they can into a camera, but even they're not going to give you an A1 and an A7 IV. It's not going to happen. Okay. So when you look at this camera as a competitor to, say, the Sony A7 IV, I think it's somewhat inadequate. I didn't do a full comparison or anything, but right away you've got, I think a 33 megapixel sensor on the A7 IV. You've got a great autofocus system that's probably at least comparable to this camera. The lightweight body, the Sony engineering, image quality engineering is just top notch. The video quality from Sony cameras is top notch, and Canon too, but Sony's I would argue is even better. Bottom line is, guys, if you're a Canon shooter, this is one to look at. So thanks for watching. Make it a great day and get out there and enjoy nature. Bye-bye.